Part 1. The Call in the Night. Hospitals at night are often wrapped in a dense silence, as if an invisible curtain is weighing down every long corridor and room filled with the sharp scent of disinfectant. That night, the clock struck exactly midnight, and all the hallway lights had been dimmed. Outside, the city still breathed in distant rhythms, but inside the 7th floor of the hospital, the world seemed to have stopped moving. Only the steady beep of a heart monitor sounded, one pulse at a time, like a fragile heartbeat being counted out. In room 706, Michael lay motionless. He had been here for months, ever since a stroke had left the left side of his body paralyzed. His face was etched with deep wrinkles, his eyes half open, quietly staring at the ceiling. The night nurse had just left, leaving behind a thick stillness, punctuated only by the whistling wind slipping through the poorly sealed window. Michael was used to that quiet, until tonight, something was different. A harsh, dry sound echoed through the stillness, tearing at the silence. At first, Michael thought it was the door slamming, but then it happened again, more clearly, the sound of wings flapping, strong and rough. A cold gust of air swept through, making the curtain flutter softly. Then, in a moment when his heart seemed to skip a beat, a giant white shadow streaked past the partially open window. The white owl. It landed right at the head of the bed, its wings spreading wide before folding neatly, making the metal bed frame shudder quietly. Its yellow eyes glowed briefly, as if holding a bottomless abyss. The whole room froze in silence. Michael tried to lift his trembling arm, but it was too heavy. It only moved by a few centimeters. That presence was utterly strange and surreal. An owl, in a closed-off 7th floor hospital room. The window was open just inches, not nearly wide enough for wings that large to slip through. Yet there it was, alive and present before his eyes, its round head turned fully, the gaze settling on Michael's thin, gaunt hand. Those eyes didn't just look, they probed, silently, as if weighing something profound. The air was so thick Michael could hear each pulse of his heart. He wanted to believe it was a hallucination, a dream conjured by painkillers. But when sharp claws scraped the bed's edge, that chilling rasp made him shudder. The owl flapped its wings once, clouds of dust falling from the window frame. Then it fell eerily still. In that moment, Michael realized he couldn't look away. There was a strange pull in that gaze, mysterious, yet hauntingly familiar. His nose stung, his hand shook violently, as if a dim memory was surfacing. That white silhouette was not merely a lost bird. It carried something else, a call, a sign, an invisible thread connecting back to a past Michael had tried to bury. Down the hallway, a flicker of lights passed, marking a medical cart rolling by. But inside the room, time seemed suspended. Michael, his hospital bed, and the white owl, locked in a surreal tableau. Why had it chosen him? Why, among countless rooms, did the owl appear exactly here, to the man confined to this bed? That question drilled into Michael's mind, leaving him clutching the edge of his sheet to anchor himself to reality. And in that moment, while darkness cloaked the world outside, Michael didn't know this was only the beginning. In the nights to come, the owl would return, bringing secrets beyond human understanding, and a truth he could never have imagined. Part 2. The Message from the Past. In the dim corridor light, the air in the hospital room thickened, heavy, as though memories themselves were draping slower with each movement. Michael lay motionless, his heart pounding even as his breath tried to steady, when the white owl suddenly tilted its head. Its yellow eyes followed every faint twitch of his trembling hand, as though seeking something buried by time. Seconds passed, and then the owl made a surprising gesture. It bent down, carefully dropping a small object beside him. This unbelievable sight jolted Michael even more than the owl's arrival, for the small object was the locket he thought lost long ago. Holding the secrets of a love that had passed, the locket lay heavily on the sheet, its tarnished silver surface reflecting his soul for a fleeting moment. The owl's eyes remained fixed on Michael. In that unbroken silence, the coldness of the locket began to seep into him, gently yet insistently calling up memories. Michael tilted his head with wonder, staring at the locket's subtle weightiness. Caught between nostalgia and an unspoken disorientation, the omniscient narrator knew everything. Michael's memory, the gentle gaze of his late wife, the tender smile in a faded photo, their fingers brushing the locket, the promise that was never fulfilled. Time had become fragile, like a gossamer veil between now and what had been. Being drawn softly aside, Michael's hand shook as he grabbed the locket. It opened with a small click, just enough to make his heart skip. Inside was a family photo, him, his wife, and 2 children, but the photo was partially torn, fragments of a once happy portrait. A small scrap of paper slid out, its crease faded, the scrawled handwriting still recognizable. Love does not die, it only pauses to watch us grow. Michael could not remember whether he had written that note, nor in what circumstances his wife might have done so. He only remembered them laughing when the locket was given. And that reminder, like a whisper across time, the vivid memories, the ache of loss, and the locket together made him feel as if he had been transported to a moment where his wife was still alive. The image choked him with emotion, his heart filled tight, his eyes blurred with tears, yet within the ache flickered a faint comfort. The owl did not take its eyes off Michael, standing silently as a shadow between 2 worlds. It knew he was afraid, not only of losing loved ones, but of a secret he didn't fully understand, a message, or maybe a blessing. In that moment, Michael sensed a silent pull guiding him, not through words, but through presence, and he realized that this night marked the start of a different journey. He tried to lift his weak arm, but it trembled too hard to hold the locket steady. It slipped and fell to the floor, echoing softly in the still room. The owl gently stepped forward, its claw hovering, nudging the locket back into reach. Michael felt a quiet warmth from it, a sign of guidance, like a thin bridge connecting him with a truth waiting to be uncovered. For a moment, Michael thought he heard his wife whispering, "Hold on and keep going." He closed his eyes, trembling, not from fear, but from a faint hope entangled with grief and trust. In the cold hospital night, something warm was beginning to stir. The omniscient narrator sensed the tug of war inside him. Michael caught between the light of memory and the darkness of reality. His physical wounds still raw, yet his heart yearning to reconnect with a love that had slipped away. And the owl, symbol of wonder and mystery, was not just a messenger, but the keeper of the door that leads to memory and truth. Then Michael slowly opened his eyes. The locket lay snug in his hand, laden with emotion, vibrating with his heartbeat. After a soft flap, as if murmuring, the owl lifted off into the window frame silently, leaving Michael with boundless questions. Was this a sign from his late wife? Or a trick of his fevered mind? Yet deep inside him, a quiet resolve was taking root. He would seek the answer. For himself, and for whatever his wife had left behind. Part 3. Traces in the Dark. 1 week after the white owl appeared with the locket, the 7th floor of the hospital still felt like a separate world, where time moved slowly in moments that stood completely still. Yet within each of those seconds, Michael felt a change, an unfolding string of clues that only he could perceive, only he dared to follow. When night fell, and the corridor lights flickered, and the ventilator's rhythmic hum echoed like the approaching footsteps of fate, the owl returned. This time, it did not appear just once, but came back night after night, each time like part of a silent ritual. It stood there, still and focused, its piercing golden eyes always fixed on Michael in a way that made his chest feel tight. The owl never made a sound, simply waited, as if expecting a reaction, a sign that only Michael could understand. Its gaze was not just watchful, it pierced through him, reaching deep into his soul, into wounds that had never fully healed. With every encounter, Michael felt an invisible hand gently push him further along a path he could no longer avoid. One night, the owl once again dropped the locket into his palm. It opened under the soft yellow light. Inside was that same tattered family photo, now somehow more vivid than even memory itself. His wife and 2 children were there, but the top left corner was torn. Maybe he had torn it himself in a moment of pain he no longer remembered. Next to the photo was a small, yellowed note, its edges marked by time, but the words stood out clearly. The road home is not empty, but filled with voices long forgotten. Michael did not know why the message appeared here, in the darkness of his hospital room, but it felt as though his wife was reaching out, through memories, through these torn scraps, to guide him, to tell him there was a buried truth waiting to be uncovered. It was not just the owl. There was another sound that made Michael's heart jolt: claws scratching against the hospital door on moonless nights. The scratching was uneven, not loud, but chilling, like someone, or something, trying to tear through the veil between truth and darkness. Once, Michael saw a faint smear of blood on the doorframe. The line, like a fingertip, dragged across and dropped. Then it vanished when he tried to look closer. That presence was unclear, but each time it came, it drew Michael closer to a dark secret awakening within the hospital. During those nights, Michael experienced the most intense emotions he had ever felt. There was fear of the strange owl, of the clawing noise, of something unseen watching him from the dark. Yet there was also an inexplicable pull, as though something far deeper was calling him back. His mind swirled with grief over his wife, the numbness of his body, and the growing realization that this was no miracle. It was a message, a guide from something lost, yet still alive in memory. The omniscient narrator could see it all: Michael, caught between hope and fear, standing before a thick fog where even the smallest thread of light might lead to truth. Part 4. The Gateway to Truth. On the 7th night since the locket had first appeared, the hospital remained wrapped in its usual silence. But for Michael, every breath now felt different. Inside him, the nameless tension was growing, as if an unanswered question was breathing down his neck. And that night, when the white owl once again landed on the windowsill, its cold golden eyes meeting Michael's weathered gaze, something final shifted inside him. The owl did not call, it just looked, as it always had. Then it flapped its wings gently, turned purposefully, and flew into the dark hallway. Michael understood. It was an invitation. Without hesitation, he called for the night nurse, a young woman named Ellie who often came to check his medications. Under her puzzled eyes, Michael's voice rasped from age and disuse. "Help me up. I need to follow it." Though confused, Ellie helped him into a wheelchair. The wheels rolled softly down the hallway like the repeating loops of memory. The owl flew ahead slowly, always keeping just enough distance, as if guiding them. The corridor lights flickered every time it passed. Was it coincidence, or a sign? No one knew. They moved forward, past the patient wards, turning into a rarely visited corridor, where dust had started to gather on the walls, and abandoned carts sat forgotten. A rusted door appeared. On it, faded letters read, "Medical Storage, Section B, Decommissioned." The door was slightly ajar, as if someone had been waiting. The owl landed on the metal handle, scraping it twice with its claw. That sound, metal against metal, sent a chill down Michael's spine, but he motioned for Ellie to push him inside. The room was dark and full of dust. White sheets draped over old medical equipment swelled in the draft. There was the smell of stale medicine, old paper, and somewhere beneath it, a scent disturbingly like dried blood. Michael said nothing. He stared at a rusted iron table at the far end of the room, where the owl now perched. On the table lay a stack of old papers, weighed down by a small metal block. Ellie stepped forward, hands trembling, picked one up, and gave it to him. The first line read, "Internal Report, Unrecorded Stroke Case, February 21st, 2017. Michael's hand trembled. He read every word. A female patient, with a known history of drug allergies, died after being given an inappropriate treatment dose. The report was never sent out. The family never received the full autopsy. Instead, they were handed a simple death certificate, stroke due to cardiac complications. The date, the nurse's name, and even the time matched exactly with his memory of his wife's death. In that moment, it was as if all the air had been sucked out of the world. Every sound vanished, save for the pounding of his own heart. Ellie, looking over the paper, was speechless. She simply breathed hard, one hand resting on his shoulder. Michael closed his eyes, and his wife's image returned, her radiant smile holding the locket years ago, the gentle gaze through the hospital glass, and then gone forever. Michael no longer doubted. He understood why the owl had come. It was not a random messenger. It was a voice from beyond, from the woman he loved, from an injustice that had never been spoken. Pain surged through him like a wave, but with it came a faint glimmer of something else, hope. Now, he stood at a crossroads. He could keep the secret, bury it with these rotting records, to protect the hospital's reputation, to quietly live out the rest of his life. Or he could reveal everything, drag it into the light, risk everything, challenge the system, confront those who had buried a death, to protect others from suffering as he had. His lips tightened, his heart trembled again, but this time, it was not from fear. It was from resolve. He turned to Ellie. Her eyes shimmered, as if she already understood the choice he was about to make. Michael handed her the documents, his hand gripping gently. "Help me," he said, "not for me, for her." The owl rose then, soaring in a slow arc around the room before vanishing into the shadowed dome above. It made no sound, no farewell was needed. It knew its purpose was complete. As for Michael, he was no longer just the helpless patient in a bed. In his hand now was not just the locket, but the truth, the memory, and a flame that could not be extinguished. He had stepped into the gateway of truth, and he would not turn back. Part 5. Silence before dawn. As the truth slowly surfaced, the hospital remained wrapped in the thick silence of night. The hallway lights had shifted to a soft glow, signaling that dawn was near. Michael lay on his hospital bed, eyes gently closed. His body was weary from physical pain, but his soul felt strangely renewed. In the quiet space, there was a gentle presence. The white owl appeared one final time, not hurried, like a tender spirit passing through the threshold between two worlds. In that moment, Michael felt something drop beside him. He opened his eyes and saw a pure white feather lying on the bedsheet. Soft, pristine, like a silent farewell from his mysterious companion. The feather shimmered faintly in the dim light, holding within it both comfort and a wordless goodbye. Michael said nothing. His chest rose and fell with steady breaths. A tear slid down his cheek, not from sorrow, but from a sense of peace. A faint smile formed on his lips, the kind his beloved wife used to wear, as though she had returned, briefly, leaving behind nothing but a single feather. That feeling, both mournful and sacred, seemed to pause time, allowing Michael to savor each breath, each final ripple of the night. Down the corridor, the sky on the horizon began to blush, a sign that morning was awakening. The hospital slowly stirred with it. Soft footsteps of nurses echoed, and light crept through the glass doors. But inside room 706, there was only Michael and the white feather, as if the outside world had faded, leaving only this moment, sacred and full of gratitude. Why had the owl chosen him? That was no longer a question he asked. It had chosen him not by chance, but by intent, a gift of memory and love, never truly gone, only transformed. And perhaps, the owl, as an unseen messenger, had come to deliver that truth to him. Michael placed the feather gently into his palm, feeling as though something deep within had been touched. He whispered into the stillness, a message not meant for anyone else but himself. "Thank you for coming, and for letting me say goodbye." Around him, the heart monitor still beeped, and the first light of dawn grew pale. Michael closed his eyes, a smile slowly spreading across his face, as if he had finally recovered a part of his soul lost to countless days. In that rising dawn, the glimmer of an owl's eye flickered, like a faith never extinguished, before dissolving into the radiant sky, leaving behind the eternal question, was it chance, or a message from beyond? Part 6. The final message, an invisible connection. There are connections that cannot be seen with the naked eye. They do not reveal themselves through words or reside in logic, but instead weave through the subtle touches of memory. Each fleeting moment when a familiar scent or sound stirs something deep within the soul. For Michael, that fateful night was not only the moment truth came to light, but the moment he reconnected with a love he thought was lost. Not through words, but through the eyes of a wild creature. People say that when someone leaves, they never truly disappear, they simply change form into an old song that suddenly plays at your favorite coffee shop. A gentle breeze brushing the back of your neck on the first cold day of winter. Or a white feather falling onto a hospital bed at midnight. And sometimes, they return, not to remind you of pain, but to remind you that love never left. Michael no longer asked questions. He no longer tried to explain why a white owl appeared on the 7th floor of a hospital, or how the lost locket found its way back to him. The only thing he truly believed, and knew with quiet certainty, was that some things go beyond words and reason. That thing was connection, but connection woven with love, loss, regret, and hope. But above all, the courage to believe in what cannot be seen. Through that connection, Michael had not only faced his grief, but rediscovered a part of himself, a part lost the day his wife passed. On that final morning, the sky opened into a rare clear blue after days of gray. The first ray of sunlight pierced through the window of room 706, touching the white feather still resting quietly on the edge of the bed. No one moved it, no one could explain how it got there. But Ellie, the young nurse who had walked with Michael through that night, looked at it with different eyes. In that brief moment, she felt as if someone was smiling at her from beyond the unseen veil. And then, at the highest point of the hospital, a pair of owl's eyes glimmered in the morning light. They looked at no one, only out toward the horizon, where blue sky met golden light. In the final moment before its wings spread wide, the creature's form dissolved into the sky, not leaving a trace, not making a sound, only the warmth of its presence lingering like a deep, slow breath that would never fade. Some stories do not need to be proven, they only need to be told, with the heart.